the only people who create sustainable jobs and real wealth are private businesses. Some CEOs are upset that people don't understand that, and they don't. So they just formed a group called the Job Creators Alliance. Tonight's show is made up entirely of CEOs from that alliance. We'll feature 6 men who started or built businesses and also ended up creating more than not saving or creating more than 250,000 jobs. So we start with Tom Stemberg, who founded Staples.
That was easy.
The biggest office supply chain in the world. Brad Anderson, who helped expand Best Buy into the $50 billion company it is today. And David Park, CEO of Austin Capital, which has 8 businesses that help small businesses manage themselves. So people don't like you business people often. I mean, you know, maybe Best Buy and Staples, they're consumer friendly, but the perception is that you don't do much good and that government creates jobs. You're head of the alliance. You formed this to fight that?
Well, we formed the organization to represent small business. And small business itself creates the majority of the jobs and employs the majority of the people. And one of the problems that we see in this country today is that small business has absolutely no voice. And because they have no voice, it's easy to attack business people. It's easy to attack business.
Well, why just small business? I mean, this big business is okay, too.
They are, but in order to have a very sustainable long-term economic growth, we really need to start focusing on small business. And we were all, at one point when we started, small business. And we got 10 people together, the founding members and CEOs of one of the best American brands in this country that have taken small businesses and turned them into large businesses. And one of the things that we're trying to do is make sure a small business, who we believe is going to make this country stronger again, is who we need to represent.
All right. And Brad, you have talked about business needs to speak out because there's a sense that you guys are evil.
You know, I think part of that is the general perception that business people are evil. And to be honest with you, I can relate to that because when I started many years ago, I wasn't interested in a business career. I stumbled into a business career, and I thought business was evil.
How'd you get in?
I dropped out of seminary, didn't want to do that, didn't know what to do with my life. I went to the story about a stereo firm in college and got a job as a clerk in a store. And that wound up 36 years later. It grew from $4 million to a $50 billion company. But
to Best Buy.
Yeah, but it was pure fluke, and it wasn't because I chose a business career.
And your perception was that business just takes from people.
Yeah, and it was based on greed, and it was based on selfishness, and it couldn't be good. And then I sort of watched what happens in building a business. The Sound of Music, which became Best Buy, it was 11 years before it made a dollar of profit, and then it started losing money again. It's really hard to build a business. And part of, I think, reason for getting involved with Job Creators Alliance is watching and that's what refreshes the economy, how hard that is to do today, because we're adding complexity to that process. It's already pretty tough.
And the media doesn't get it.
I think a lot of the media has never seen that experience as sort of the development of a business the way some of us have.
I think most people in the media feel there's this pie, and if you rich guys take a big chunk, there's less for the rest of us. They don't get that you bake new pies.
Yeah, I mean, just take the Staples. There was nothing like Staples before you created. There was nothing really like Best Buy. It certainly as Best Buy emerged. That changes the marketplace, and it delivers things much more efficiently. It expands people's standard of living. We live better than anybody else in the world does, but we presume that just happened.
Or it's our government that gave it to us.
Which no other government seems to, and I don't think ours does either.
Tom?
You know, what bothers me is that the people in Washington think that they create jobs, as you point out. Well, they do create some jobs. They're creating $300 million worth of jobs in the new Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which I don't think is doing much for productivity in America. We're creating all kinds of jobs, trying to live up to Dodd-Frank, and trying to figure out what the ratio of the CEO pay is to the average worker around the world, and those jobs don't create much productivity. I'd like to think the jobs we finance through the Whalen Consumer Fund, and I've helped create over 100,000 jobs myself, are real jobs. And companies like Pinkberry and City Sports and Jay McLaughlin that are growing and adding employment. And yet, as Brad points out,
these are new jobs you've created with your new venture capital firm.
And these are brand new jobs, and yet, as Brad points out, all that we get is grief and more hoops to jump through and more forms to fill out and more regulations to comply with. And we got to post a sign in our lunchroom.
This is what was just added in regulations last year by the federal
NLRB,
government.
we got to post in our break rooms that you ought to be encouraged to go join a union. Well, this is ridiculous. This does nothing for productivity.
And I get a sense that a big part of David's income, his whole company, is helping these companies do compliance. I hadn't even heard this word compliance, and now I see every business has to have a compliance department, and I mean, it's really a parasite-like. They just suck away from creativity.
Growing investment segments in venture capital is compliance software.
That's awful, right?
I think
it's
so.
not wealth creation.
Absolutely not.
How did you start Staples?
Well, it started being unemployed and looking for something to do, the truth be known. And I saw that small businesses were getting ripped off, that big businesses were buying pens for 77 cents a dozen, and small businesses were paying $3.68. I didn't think that was fair, and try to figure out a way to get the little businesses similar prices to the big businesses. Turned out to be a pretty good idea.
And everybody else wants to be the CEO of a giant company. How come you were better at it? Were you brown-nosing the bosses?
No. What helps to start the company, you get to decide a lot more things when you do.
Okay,
when you get to do
I'm
that.
sorry, I didn't realize you
it helps to start. It helps to start it for sure. And I think over time, in this country, hard work should be rewarded. And generally speaking, if you meet the people who run these companies, they work their butts off. I mean, the perception in the public is these guys are flying around in private jets, going from golf tournament to fancy dinners. The reality is these are 80-hour-a-week, and these days, in the internet age, 7-by-24 jobs, which huge stress, and every day you get anything good happens to you, like you get a bonus, you're subject to scrutiny in the media.
David, how did you become a businessman?
Just like Tom, I founded it.
And you came to America, you're an immigrant, you came when you were 6 years old?
I came over from South Korea when I was 6 years old.
Your parents already had some entrepreneurial attitude. They were...
Well, when I came over, of course, I couldn't speak English. I remember helping them at 7, standing on a box, looking at a register, bringing things up before I could...
Illegal today!
Is that illegal?
Yeah, child labor.
Well, I think the parents can actually abuse you a little bit,
It's an
but I'm
OSHA
not sure.
violation as well. That box may not be 30. It's an OSHA violation as well.
Is that right? More regulations. So we started off, basically I lived the American dream. Started my own firm because I wanted to take control over my life. I wanted to make sure that I got to do what I wanted to do and either fail or succeed based upon how hard I worked. And we should be rewarded for the productivity and creativity. And I think one of the interesting things that people have asked me about me being from South Korea is the difference between North and South right now. And if you take a look at where South Korea is currently, they are heading towards free market, and they are continuously opening up that free market. And when you fly over Korea, you see light. Now, you look at North Korea, which has gone into a command economy, a completely government-regulated economy, it's all dark. So,
and I think we have a picture that you can see that, light and dark.
But if it becomes harder and harder for you to be entrepreneurial because of the regulation, because it is far harder to get financing, then you're actually going towards darkness. You're actually going towards a regulated economy that we know doesn't work.
Some people would say, yes, we know it does work. Look at China. That's a managed economy. They have 5-year plans, and they're outgrowing us.
That's actually the argument in the other direction. Because China was dark.
That's right.
And as it's pulled off the strings off people, all of a sudden the lights have come on. And there are lots of places where China has less regulation. It's freer to do business in China than it is in the United States. So that's actually proof of the premise from my lens.
That's right.
Now, recently, Rush Limbaugh took heat by saying greed fed more mouths than charity. And I read on the web, people, oh, what a disgusting person. How can he say this?
One of the things that drives me crazy on this issue is if you look at evolution, if you believe in evolution, then you believe that the species survives based on a struggle, that the fittest survive based on an ability to do what others don't do. I'm not arguing in favor of greed, but acting in self-interest. My dad's a pastor, and I did a speech in front of a group of retired pastors trying to argue that one of the biggest surprises I had was that acting in your own interest sometimes can build a more moral environment. Like, if I'm an employer, the first thing I want to do is I want to know I can trust you. Otherwise, if I can't trust you, then...
People perceive what entrepreneurs do as greed. Every entrepreneur I know just about his first or her first primary motive was to change the world. When Pierre Medar and Meg Whitman built up eBay, it wasn't to make a lot. They made a lot of money, but that wasn't their motive. Their motive was to make it easier for small businesses to do commerce and to sell. My motive was to help small businesses save and to have a lot of fun doing it. I made some money along the way, and that was great, but that wasn't the motive for most of us.
I would argue even if it was, that's okay too, because business can't use force. Thank you, David Park, Brad Anderson, Tom Stemberg. These three alone helped create more than 200,000 jobs. Coming up, more CEOs, more job creators. We'll talk about where the best workers are and regulation. That, as I said, is a sample of the rules that today's CEOs have to obey. My next guests say because of those rules, today they could not build the companies they once built. Be right back.
Tebow, too religious? Should the Christian quarterback be forced to keep his faith off the football field? And we take up a new crop of regulations that could destroy the farming industry. Then, the Casey Anthony trial captured America's attention. Now the former prosecutor shares crucial facts you didn't know on the next Tom Sullivan Show.
Monica Rare Corn